there's 3 tips that I feel will have the greatest impact in helping you stick with your diet so you can finally get lean, but most important, stay lean. Tip number 1 is to identify the triggers that cause you to overeat. Now, I am certain that if you reflect back on all your past experiences of when you've overeaten, you can identify some patterns there. Maybe you ate out of boredom or stress or fatigue. Maybe you notice that the nights where you don't get as much sleep, the next day your appetite tends to go through the roof. Or maybe when you don't drink enough water, you're a little bit dehydrated. That's when your appetite increases. Or maybe days where you happen to skip meals earlier in the day, or you don't eat as much as normal earlier in the day. You get to dinner, and once you have that first bite, the floodgates open and you just can't control yourself. Or maybe you're really good most of the time, but it's only when you're out at events and gatherings, when you're faced with all these temptations, that you just can't control yourself. Now, the great news is we can learn from those past experiences, but we're going to continue to go through these experiences as time goes on. And each time we're faced with these experiences, it's an opportunity to identify these triggers and improve for the next time we're faced with them. So whenever a client reaches out to me and they let me know that they had an overeating experience, I always ask them, like, what happened? What led to that overeating experience? What was going through your mind at the time when you became aware that you were losing control there? What can you learn from this experience, and how would you like to improve the next time you're faced with this situation? Now, the key is to look beyond the surface. So I know for myself personally, 13 years ago when I was trying to lose that 50 pounds of fat, one of my biggest challenges, or I became aware of, that I was really good for a few days and then I'd have a binge eating experience. So the thing that allowed me to move forward and finally lose that 50 pounds of fat was to stop and think, like, what's going on here? What's happening? What are the triggers that are causing me to overeat and have this binge eating experience? Now, on the surface level, I could have thought to myself, you know what, there's just all these temptations in my house. There's always cookies and chips and boxed cereal and ice cream. It's the temptations. I just don't have the willpower to control myself. But then I look around, I see my kids and my ex-wife, like, why are they able to control themselves? They're not caving into these temptations there. Why am I caving into it? What's different? What am I doing different that's causing me to overeat on these foods when they're able to eat very responsible with them in the house? So I'm thinking to myself, all right, what's usually going on here is, like, I'm good for 3 days, and then all of a sudden I have a cookie, and I'm like, you know what? That cookie was great. I've been really good for a few days here. I'm gonna have 3 cookies right now. So I'm okay. I'm aware of what's going on there. Maybe it is the all or nothing approach that I'm taking that is leading me to overeat. Maybe if I don't restrict myself so much for 3 days, I won't have this binge eating experience. That's one thing that I became aware of there. The other thing is, like, once I'd had that third cookie, I tell myself, there we go, I blew my diet. I may as well just pig out right now and start again tomorrow. So I'd eat that entire box of cookies, and then I'm like, well, I really blew my diet. I might as well eat some chips and ice cream, and why not have a bowl of cereal right now too? I'm gonna start again tomorrow, and I'll be better the next time here. So again, not only that all or nothing approach that I was taking, but also beating myself up, like feeling guilty for having those cookies and going off plan, not sticking with my diet, was not a good thing. I need to learn to be kind to myself in those situations, but also recognizing that, okay, like 3 cookies didn't blow my diet. Like, I can actually still hit my calorie target for the day, even though I consumed those 3 cookies. And even if I go a little bit over, it's so much easier to balance it out throughout the week. So thinking that 3 cookies blew my diet was a big mistake, and thinking to myself, you know what, I can have cookies every single day if I want to and fit them into my calorie target for the day and still achieve my goals there. So really recognizing the conversations that are going on in my head. So it wasn't the situation, it wasn't having the food in the house, it wasn't really that as being the all or nothing approach. It's like how I was justifying the excess, what I was telling myself in those moments that led me to overeat, and just becoming aware of it. All right, if I start thinking those thoughts again, I tell myself, like, those 3 cookies were freaking delicious. You can have 3 cookies again tomorrow if you want. It's okay. You can have these 3 cookies and still hit your target for the day. It's okay. You didn't blow your diet. Enjoy those cookies. Really savor every bite that you're eating there. This is a golden opportunity for you to learn to be responsible with the portions that you're consuming. And tip number 2 is to simply improve upon your natural eating tendencies. Think to yourself, how do you want to eat? You don't have to eat like anyone else or follow any kind of rigid rules out there. Simply look at the foods that you enjoy consuming and you want to keep in your diet. So if you really enjoy having chips on a Friday night while you're watching a movie with your partner, that's awesome. How can you fit that into your portions for the day or your total calorie target for the day or for the week? If you enjoy having a couple of drinks on the weekend, how can you fit that into your target for the day or for the week there? What are areas that you would like to improve upon? Maybe you want to incorporate more veggies into your diet. Maybe there's certain foods that you know just don't make you feel good and you would like to eliminate them. You don't really need them in there. It's just become a habit, a routine for you to mindlessly eat and you'd like to remove them. So it's not trying to completely overhaul your diet or follow someone else's diet. It's like taking what you're currently eating, taking the foods that you enjoy consuming, the drinks that you enjoy consuming, and working that into your meal plan for the week and making it enjoyable. That's what really is going to allow it to be sustainable for you, and know that it's going to evolve over time. You don't have to be stuck. Like how I eat right now is similar to how I ate 5 years ago. It's night and day to how I ate 10 years ago because I've had this heightened sense of awareness to what serves me best. And that brings us to tip number 3 is to have that heightened sense of awareness. As you are making these changes to the foods that you're consuming, the meals that you're having, paying attention to how that makes you feel. And paying attention, like when you have that overeating experience, like how do you feel during, how do you feel afterwards? And because oftentimes, like if you notice that you're feeling uncomfortable, like every Friday night I'd go out with the guys, it was a planned cheat meal, cheat night or whatever. I did this for years, but I'd come home like with acid reflux. I would feel so bloated and uncomfortable. I'd have a crappy night's sleep. I'd feel lethargic the next day. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Like it's just not worth it. Not only do I feel crappy that night and the next day, but even while I'm eating all that food in excess, like I'm not gaining any greater joy from that experience than if I just ate to the point of satisfaction. And maybe you notice, like a lot of my clients and a lot of my friends, that if you have more than 2 drinks, you get a little brain fog for the next day or maybe 2 days before you actually feel like yourself again. So you lose a couple of days of productivity. Your performance in the gym and all that you're doing throughout the day is not what it typically is. Just not feeling like yourself. So is it worth it? Maybe it's better just to stop at 1 drink, or maybe you decide, you know what, maybe just alcohol isn't for me. It's not agreeing with me. Why am I going to do this to myself if I'm not gaining any benefit from this experience? So really paying attention to how any change that you're making with your nutrition, how it's impacting you, not just how your like stomach is feeling or what's going on with your scale weight or anything like that, but like your mental focus, your clarity, your performance, your energy, your mood, your overall well-being. Paying attention to all these little subtle changes, having that heightened sense of awareness is absolutely key for you, again, continuing to evolve over time. And you'll notice that like each time that you eliminate something, you start feeling better from it or make a little modification, like this feels good, that becomes your new norm. And then you make other little subtle changes. And again, like for me, it's subtle little changes of learning to take my time chewing my food, like enjoying, savoring every single bite that I'm eating. Like that has changed my whole dining experience and really how I view food. Like it's a joyful experience. I love food. I love eating. I love dining out, as does everyone. But I gain so much more pleasure from it when I take my time chewing. I'm actually savoring every bite, like thoroughly enjoying that meal and realizing that eating in excess doesn't give me any joy. If anything, it takes away from the experience. So having that heightened sense of awareness to how your body is responding to any little subtle change that you made. I know one of my buddies, Aaron, maybe we'll talk about this in an upcoming video. He started increasing his carbohydrates. He's knowing he's really dragging his butt lately, not sleeping as well. So he bumped up his carbohydrate intake. His workouts are so much better. His energy is so much better. His mood is so much better. He's sleeping better. And when he's sleeping better, that's going to increase his energy, his mood, his performance, and all that as well. So subtle little changes can make a difference. It's not so much following a set macro ratio or anything. No one can tell you exactly what you should do. It's having that open-minded willingness to experiment, but then paying attention to how your body responds in those situations. Some people love intermittent fasting, becoming aware of, are you having a more productive morning if you happen to delay your first meal until early afternoon? Or is delaying that meal, does that cause you to eat a little bit more afterwards? We're all different. So following someone else's experience, it may give you some insight, something to experiment with, but you may not have the exact same outcome from that experience. So it's really important to have that heightened sense of awareness as to what suits you best and really develop your own way of eating that's going to suit you.